The Evermore podcast is now sponsored by WFST Total Compliance. WFST provides fire safety requirements UK-wide to prepare you and your employees should the worst happen. Do what you do best and visit wfst.co.uk today. Enjoy the episode. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. Slightly later than anticipated. Apologies for that. Technical difficulties by the man in the chair. We are back on Monday night, 10 o'clock, asking the same thing that we always ask. What is going on? Or as they say in Italy, Mark, Costa Stacia Sedendo. How are you doing, bud? You all right?
Buongiorno. Yeah, it's a newsworthy day today, hasn't it? With the eventual confirmation of Sandro Tonali, so I think everybody's in a celebratory mood, for Newcastle fans, aren't they?
Fucking pasta and pizza all over Northeast tonight. People have just been fucking whacking it out there. Tagliatelle, fucking pen, the whole shebang, you name it. We've all been raking out the ragu sauce in their preparation for our first Italian signing since Andro Pistone. Let's hope he does better than him. It won't be fucking hard, will it? Let's be brutally honest, mate. He wasn't great.
He did all right at times. I wouldn't say he was. He's no world beater, but hey, it's it's a record for an Italian to the Premier League. Perhaps
I think it is the most expensive Italian since we booked that table one time in Jesmond that year with us and the girls, mate. I've got to say the most expensive Italian since then, probably. But listen, we'll get stuck right into We'll get stuck right into this in a minute. We are live tonight, guys, so please feel free to jump in the comments. Loads of you have already been having a little chin wag amongst yourselves tonight, which is awesome. As we always say, everybody, if you're new to the channel, you haven't checked us out for the first time, please subscribe. We're over 4,100 subs now, so it's growing every single day. Thank you so much to you wonderful people who smashed that button. There's loads of room here and evermore. We're not even 2 years old yet. To be over 4K is brilliant for us. Absolutely brilliant. So we really appreciate all the love. And going in the comments, there's been loads in there, but this one has caught my eye straight away. No, Ian, it wasn't actually the podcast who chewed the wires, but that was a very good guess, mate. If we were playing Cluedo, you would be seriously in for a shout to win that, mate, to be honest with you. Was it the fucking cat in the fucking living room with the teeth? Was it that, Mark, do you think?
For once, it wasn't the cat, because I kicked the cat out tonight. There you go. In a nice way. I let him out.
He's took your advice, Ian. He's booted the cat out. And you're right, George. It is difficult times, mate. I did stick £1 in the meter, mate. So I was ready, but we had some technical glitches. But we're going to get stuck right in, guys, because we've got loads of stuff to get through. I suppose, Mark, there's no better place to start than with the Italian stallion himself. Tonali, as he will often be referred to, I'm sure, but every Newcastle fan. We did a little reaction video earlier on if you've checked it out, guys. But it's great news, mate, isn't it? We're going to get into the transfer talk in a minute. A little bit of frustration was mounting, I think, amongst the fans. Certainly some of our viewers were putting in some of the comments for the Rumour Has It videos. You could sense that frustration. So this unveiling probably comes at the right time, Mark, just to calm some nerves, I think, doesn't it?
I think people need... Sorry, I think people need to get a grip.
Calm down.
It's July the 3rd, man. I mean, the transfer window effectively has been open for 3 days now. And this was already pretty much confirmed anyway last week. It's a big sign. It is a marquee signing. Yeah, people need to calm. There's plenty of time left. The season didn't kick off for another, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? There's plenty of time. So, yeah, people need to just calm a little bit. There's a method in what Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth and the club are doing at the moment. It's don't believe all you read on Twitter. Well, if you can read on Twitter, to be honest with you, because
unless it's your 601st tweet, and in that case, you'd be fucked. You can't read that at all. So it better be your 597th tweet, or you're in big trouble. But we won't be talking about that fucking Willy Wanker character. We'll be here all night talking about that tit. God knows what goes on in his brain, mate. Honestly, Jesus Christ. But I think you're right, mate. I think obviously Eddie's talked about the signing of Tonali, and I actually weirdly think it's been understated a little bit in the media because of all the exorbitant figures flying around for likes of Declan Rice and guys like that. I saw a brilliant tweet from somebody earlier on. It was one of my 600 I could read, and the guy said that half the price of Rice and twice the player, which I thought was meant, to be fair. So 55 million quid for this kid. I mean, it just goes to show you again, it goes back to that inflated British tax. Rice is a brilliant player, right? But has he done more in his career than Sandro Tonali? Does he justify being 100 million quid apart from the fact that he's British and he plays in the England team rather than Sandro Tonali's 55 million?
Look, Tonali is he's at that level. He's played at the highest level. He's played, he's played in the Champions League.
Just got a semi-final, mate.
I think there's not similarities in their play, but in terms of the level that they're at between him and Rice, I think they're a very similar kind of standard of player. I'll put it that way, rather than being similar kind of player. The amount that the likes of he's going for with 100 plus, that Grealish went for 100 million. I mean, some of them have just been obscene when you think about it, and you see the likes of Bruno. I mean, Bruno's an absolute snip when you think about it. What a player for that amount of money. There's an element of bias with it, of course, but I'd far rather have Bruno on my team at 40 million than Rice at 100 million. I mean, I struggle to find a team in the league that wouldn't go down that route. So this whole English tax, I always thought was a bit bollocks, but actually, the more you look at it, we do get so overpriced for English players. It's ridiculous. And when you can go and sign some of the continent's best players, I mean, even this, you look at the likes of this week with Tonali coming in, I mean, even Szoboszlai going to Liverpool for well under the fee that Declan Rice is going to go for. It's mad.
Yeah, but it just seems to be the norm. But listen, we'll get back to that in a minute. I mean, going back to Sandro Tonali as a player, we talked about it. Rumor has it, and obviously it came through in terms of a signed, sealed, and delivered deal. There seems to be a real thirst for understanding of who this player is and what he can do. Some people are out there saying they're Italian football experts and he's this and he's that and everything. But I've watched a few of the kind of Italian journalists and media who obviously would know the player and watch the player quite a lot. And again, he sounds a little bit like Bruno in terms of he's a hybrid type midfielder. He can, at any point of the game, he could drop to a 6, he could switch to an 8, and he has that flexibility in his play. And I think, and I made a joke about this, having him, Joe Litton, and Bruno together is like the three storms from Big Trouble in Little China. Just these three absolute beasts in the midfield. But if you think about those three as a midfield three just for a second, Mark, I mean, the flexibility in game, how they could move around. Like if Tonali wants to go, Bruno can drop back. If we're playing against a team like City where we're going to be under the cosh, maybe Bruno and Tonali sit back and Joe's the 8. Or maybe Joe sits back with Tonali and Bruno's the 8. But the flexibility between the three of them interchanging, but we're going to talk about maybe missed targets in a minute, But throwing Maddison into that mix probably didn't really work. But if you throw Tonali in there, I think he complements their game. And I think the three of them, I'm really excited to see what the three of those can do together as a midfield unit. And I said this in the reaction video. If fully fit and firing, I don't think there's much better midfield three in the Premier League, probably an M3. And I know we're yet to see Tonali adjust to the Premier League, but what I've seen of him in Serie A and Champions League, I think he'll be a serious player, mate, in the Premier League. I think he'll take to like a duck to water.
I think you're right. I don't think he had the best season last season.
But Isak was the same when he at Sociedad when we signed Isak. Look at him when he came.
Exactly right. But you look at you look at Isak the season before. You look at the previous seasons from Tonali. He was his final season, particularly at Brescia, was exceptional, and he stood out in his side that was shit. He massively stood out, and he obviously moves on to Milan. He's a Milan kid. And he's played exceptionally well, and has been the kind of the one that you always kind of thought, they'll build around. There'll be the new Milan that will build around this lad. And it's strange to see him. To be honest with you, it's strange to see him move on because he's got the club such a at heart. But look, he is a fantastic player. If you look at some of the way that he played in the tournament in the Euros, the under-21s. The ability to run forward with a ball to get down, particularly down that right-hand side against France, he was exceptional breaking forward. So he's not just going to sit. He he can do that. He can play that role in the middle, like you say, but he can also travel with the ball and he can hit a pass. And Jesus Christ, he's got a good dead ball on him as well. So he's a great package, and the fee is just, I think, is another snip, and it's the wonder of what Newcastle are doing in the transfer market. They are identifying targets that nobody's really talking about. They didn't with Bruno. To an extent, they didn't with Botman for a while, although it was backward and forward and backward and forward. But the eventual deal was came out of the blue. This one came on the back of the Barella links. I often wondered whether there was a little bit of misdirection with that, in the Barella links were sort of linked and people put 2 and 2 together and got 5.
Possibly.
But it's the way that they're doing it, the way that they're keeping things to their chest, as they should. So these deals do come out of the blue, and they're getting them for the right price. They're getting the right kind of play. These players are buying into what Newcastle are selling. It's exactly what you want.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, Tonali even talked about the warmth of the crowd. So, as you rightly say, they've seen war flags, they've seen the atmosphere, they've thought, I want a piece of that. Why wouldn't you want a piece of that as a top footballer? You know, in Europe, just the mighty winds making a great point there about your point in the overinflation of players, that you pay a premium for Premiership proven players, transfer after 4 points. And I believe it's justified for strikers, but not for midfielders or defenders. I suppose, I mean, but teams know they've got your pants down, I think, when in terms of if it's a key position. Like if you're like when Liverpool were totally fucked with centre half, Southampton knew they had their pants down for Van Dijk, didn't they? They knew that Van Dijk was the player that they wanted. They knew Van Dijk was the player that could plug that gap. So they rinsed Liverpool for every penny that they've got. Part of me kind of can't disagree with clubs for doing that, but I do agree with Win in a way that, you know, it's gone a bit ridiculous, really, isn't it? You know, when, you know, holding midfielders as good as Rice's are costing you 100 million quid. You know, and you think to yourself, what the fuck's going on there? Like the quoting was at 150 for Harry Kane, or I think it's now 90 or something, isn't it, for Harry Kane? So you can get Harry Kane, who'll get you 30 goals a season for 10 million quid less than Declan Rice. It doesn't seem any sense, really, does it?
It is, but I mean, I know that Kane's got a year left on his deal, so that there's that angle of it. But yeah, I mean, it's mad when you look at that. So you shouldn't be paying that amount of money for a defensive midfielder. It's just not. It just shouldn't.
Levy ain't letting him go, mate. That guy will be old and grey, chained to a fucking goalpost by the time Levy lets him go, mate.
I was going to say, not even prime Makelele would be 100 million player. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be paying that amount of money for that sort of player. It's just the reward you get from it. It just doesn't justify it at all. I just think it's utterly a madness in this. Look, I get the Premiership proven aspect of it. Is it a bit of a myth these days? Look at the players that have come in and just taken to the league like a duck to water. I mean, Bruno walked in and just
fantastic
hit the ground running. The Botman's done the same thing, and the more and more players you look at,
Isaac as well. Isaac
as well. In that regard, you go further out. The likes of Casemiro and stuff that came in last season and just took to the league. Look, if the players are good enough, they can play in whatever league in the world. It doesn't matter where they've played before. They will come in and they will perform brilliantly in the Premier League. So I sort of get the argument, but it's bollocks. I think in terms of that, in terms of a Declan Rice type of player, and I'll quantify that. I get the striker element. I think there's an element.
Even Grealish to an extent with his creativity and his goal creations and stuff. Even that to an extent. I wouldn't have paid 100 million quid for him though, but to an extent, you understand why he's in the higher echelons. But yeah, you're right. A defensive midfielder who's great at holding and spraying the ball around. Maybe not. Mark's made a good comment there as well. A lot of top clubs across Europe are still suffering from COVID, and the Premier sides had the TV money to rely on. Ashworth is taking full advantage. Again, Mark, that just illustrates how good we are now behind the scenes, isn't it? From previous, that we got a guy who can sniff out a deal and get one of the most coveted young midfielders in Europe for less than 60 million quid is good business, mate, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think every bit of business so far, maybe the exception of Chris Wood, but even then, Chris Wood did a job, came in, did a job. You almost got your money back from at the end of it. So look, everyone's been on the money so far. Excuse the pun, but look, the team that they've got working in the background on these transfers, the team that they've got identifying these players and working on them, getting the finances right for them, they're doing a phenomenal job, and they're not being bent over a barrel for them like other teams have been. You look at some of the fees that the likes of Chelsea have paid. They know that Todd Bowley's just going to pay whatever it takes to get, the likes of Mudryk was a ridiculous fee. And you're not getting anywhere near the player that for that amount of money. So the work that they're doing at Newcastle now is just exceptional. And, there'll be more to come. I am absolutely positive of that for this summer.
Yeah, 100%. We'll hold that for a minute. We're going to get into transfers in a second. But, David's late at the party. And he said he can't see the cat. So don't worry, Mark hasn't done anything to the cat. It's just a wait at a safe place, David.
So somewhere outside, he'll be back.
He's not going to get a call off Liam Neeson, wonder where the fucking cat is. Don't worry about it. He's not doing anything like that to the cat. So no animals were harmed in the making of this Evermore episode. And Ian's even missing your cat now, mate. He's missing your cat now. That's how much he's. See, you've changed, Ian. You've changed your tunes, mate. Absolutely. I love this comment here from is it Corvo NUFC? Yeah, Maddison does definitely need to make sure he does not bump into Bale. Bale goes back to Spurs. That was funny. That was the internet never forgets, does it? Well, do you know what? That's a great segue anyway. Let's quickly move into the transfer talk. So obviously, just prior to Tonali being announced, we were getting a bit itchy, we were getting a bit sweaty in some corners of the fan base, and I kind of understand and empathise the reasons for it, because I think the excitement is so big for this window that I just think that everyone was expecting the deals to be done early. But I think we do sometimes get a bit caught up in the media speculation that Szoboszlai is a great example, right? We'll start with him. Were we even after him, or was he this season's Paqueta? Was he this season's target that everybody wanted? Everybody thought we were going to sign. Yeah, Hamza Chowdhury. But damn, if we could just get him over that line. I bet he's livid he didn't go over that line now. He's probably thinking, fuck, I could be sitting in the Champions League squad, never playing the game. But going back to Szoboszlai, were we ever really in for him? Or was it just more the media speculation that grew and grew and grew? And, Sky want clicks on their website. We want people to look at their articles. All the newspapers do. Was it just one of them, Mark, or were we generally in for Szoboszlai? Because I'd like to think if we were, then we would have made a move. Don't you think?
Yes and no. I think there was probably interest. I think that might have been genuine, but when you start to talk the fee, I mean, you think that what is it, 60, 70 million that Liverpool have spent on Szoboszlai, and you've brought in Tonali for 10, 15 million less. That represents much better business.
Yeah.
So maybe there was interest. Maybe they were told early on that contact had been made from Liverpool and that was his preferred, and then they walked away. So the initial thought was, yes, we're interested, but actually it's not going to go any further than just a brief conversation. So, but again, it could just be an element of, it's just media hype. These are the prime young players in Europe. What's Newcastle's sort of transfer base at the moment? They're looking for the likes of a Botman, a Bruno, a Tonali now. Those younger players that aren't quite in that top group, and they're going after them. So naturally, the likes of Szoboszlai are going to fit that mold.
What about this guy that Paul's mentioned there? I mean, that did flash across my mind that, no Maddison, no Szoboszlai, if we were actually anywhere near them, is it because they've got the inkling that there's another target, there's a bigger target that maybe they wanted all along, they could maybe have a chance for, and would DR be fit?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, look, he's a phenomenal player, so if they're interested, you want to bring him in, but again,
what do they want from 70 million, 80 million? Is it too much for FFP, do you reckon, for Diarby?
Maybe. It depends on the deal you can do for him. I guess over time, if you've got the added sort of add-ons and stuff for him, but they're going to want a hefty amount of cash up front, I'd imagine. But you're right. Have they identified somebody else, the likes of Mohamed Kudus, who, if you stay tuned to the channel this week, because there will be a video on him from Ajax, I think would cost less. And it plays down that right hand side. Who's the lad that I'm trying to think of the other lad's name? The that played down the right hand side.
What, as a winger?
Brent. Yeah, I'm trying to think who we covered that many players. I can't remember who we've done now.
you know all the stats, mate. If you don't know, we're back in trouble, mate. You're the stat man.
I think the other one. I think another one to come further down the line is is it Samuel Chukwueze from Villarreal?
Yeah, he's another one.
One that has been linked. However much truth there is in any of that is one of those. I think Reece Nelson was thrown in as well.
Not bad. I think he's a good player, as well. To be honest with you, he's plays the same role as Saka. He's not going to get a lot of football, is he, in Arsenal, with Saka being as good as he is. And then Havertz coming in as well. So he's going to slip down the pecking order. So why not?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, his numbers are ridiculous. I mean, if you look at his stats for the season, I think FBref have it based on his percentiles based on 510 minutes played, and he sits in pretty much the 88th or plus percentile for virtually every attacking stat going. Just because when he got on the pitch, something happened with him. He created, he scored, he was heavily involved in that, but he didn't play an awful lot. You're right, he's going to potentially fall down the pecking order, but Arsenal are in talks for a new contract for him, so that I think that one probably leans towards him staying. But if you can, if you tempt him with more football and it's Champions League football as well that's on offer, it's not dropping further down the tournaments, then perhaps he does want to move on. Maybe Willock can provide a little bit of a boost to getting him into the Northeast.
Agent Joe. There'll be a couple of shouts for Thuram's in the comments. One from Kev, then one from Les. Obviously, we've done a video on Khéphren Thuram. I think he would be phenomenal because he can play in such a multitude of positions. He can be that holding midfield. He can go on the left. He can be, a left winger. So I think a player like that, and certainly the price you would get him at, it's around about that Bruno Botman type figure, that 35 million quid. And, in 2 or 3 years, he could be an absolute superstar worth 70, 80 million quid. And the fact that Liverpool have got Szoboszlai in, a lot of their targets, that I think we were after similar targets to them. A lot of the targets that they were going for. So, if you got a 1, 2, 3 target and Szoboszlai was number 1 for them, maybe number 3 or 2 for us, but, Khéphren Thuram's number 1 or whatever, they haven't moved on him. I mean, there is talk of Liverpool. I mean, they seem to be building an entire new midfield, don't they? Which is ironic because old Turkey Teeth said, he's working with a ceiling, pretty fucking high ceiling, Jurgen, as you're pissing money left, right, and centre on players. What a fucking hypocritical, fucking piano-keyed mouth bastard he is. He winds me right up. He really does. Sorry, I'm slipping into rant mode.
Chris. Come off the fence.
I'm slipping into rant mode. He fucking winds me right up, and nobody ever chins him for it as well. That's the first question I'd ask him if I was a journalist. I'd say, what happened to that ceiling, Jurgen? Pretty fucking high, that ceiling now, isn't it? They kicked me out of the room. I'd be escorted out by security in Liverpool, probably with my tape recorder smashed into a million pieces. But it does piss me off. But anyway, going back to Newcastle. So Maddison's obviously chose Spurs as well. Did that surprise you with Maddison?
No, I think I was having a chat with one of the lads I work with, and it's saying the same thing. His interests out of football, music and fashion,
darts.
With all the greatest will in the world, Newcastle's not a hotbed of fashion, is it?
Hey, hang on a minute. I've seen some sharp dressed motherfuckers down by the Haymarket bus station, mate, when I was getting the train in the other day, mate. So
yeah, I've also been
one guy had a bag as a hat. It was raining. He had a Tesco bag as a hat. It looked fucking great, So
you were looking in the glass windows again, weren't you?
I was looking in the mirror, mate. So it was. Yeah, I've got to keep this lovely hair of mine dry, mate. Sorry, we're going off topic there. So James Maddison, fashion and music is what you were saying, mate.
Yeah, I think that was always like. But you said it before. Does he fit? Does he? I know you were massively wanting him to come and to the Northeast and play for Newcastle, and I think he would do a great job, whatever position that he played in. But he doesn't. Well, there's always that hesitancy from us to say, does he fit? Does he fit Eddie's philosophy? Does he fit in the style that he wants to play? Does he fit into a wide position or a? or a midfield berth? Or does he want to be a 10? Does he want to sit and play almost that
We don't play with 10s.
role?
Somebody said that in the comments.
No.
We don't play with 10s. So
exactly. So does he want to play that? Like I say, that almost Eriksen role for Spurs, where he sits in
Spurs
behind.
have already said it. They've already called him the new Eriksen, haven't they? They've already went
Well, there you
too
go.
soon.
So if that's what he wants, then Spurs was always going to be the main focus for him. So, but then it goes down to how much real interest was there from Newcastle. And again, we'll probably never know. They may not have even had a bid in from this transfer window. We know there was interest for the previous window, but did it actually go any further than that? Has there really been real interest from him? It's all speculation, isn't it? And it's what we do. We talk about all the speculation, otherwise we'd have nothing to talk about.
Most of our content is speculation. No ITKs. We don't make stuff up or have conversations with ourselves. I'm sorry, no more about that. Jim saying, sorry, mate. Jim saying in the comments, where is it that was that Teeth and Pool had to borrow money to foot the bill? See, that's shocking. That I'll send Mark's off. Mark's gone. The fact that Liverpool have had to borrow money to get the Soboslai deal done. I mean, they're banking big on Champions League next season, aren't they? They have to get back in that competition, mate. The last thing they want is Newcastle United finishing fourth again, because they'll be absolutely livid after all that money they've thrown in the midfield in their team. I'm still not sure about Nunez up front. I'm really not. I don't think he's all out. I really don't.
No, well, when we did a transfer rumor video about him before he signed for Liverpool, because there were links to Newcastle at that point in time.
It was, yeah.
And part of that was he so massively overscored the season before. When you look at his XG stats, and I know it's not a perfect barometer, but he was so far ahead of them for Benfica that season in both the Champions League and the league combined. It was never going to stay like that. He's not Ronaldo. He's not Messi. He's never going to score at that level on a consistent basis. And he's sort of proved that this season with being quite hit and miss. So, the jury's out. He's had a season. We'll see how it goes. Again, you never know. He might completely hit the ground running. Some players do just take that season just to get their feet wet and get themselves into the league. So he may score 30 goals a season. I don't think so, but he might surprise us all. But look, they're building. They're going to have to, because they can't, for their model, they can't stay out of the Champions League again. It's going to hurt them.
I think they're 1 or 2 seasons from losing Salah as well. I think 1 or 2 seasons. If they don't qualify for Champions League next season, I think he's gone.
I'd argue Klopp might be gone as well. If they don't get the Champions League again, I think he might move on. I think Salah probably will. I think there's the bright lights of Spain will probably come calling again.
And Real or Barca,
all of a sudden his transfer fee comes down again. Another season on, another year older, a year less on his contract, and suddenly they're not commanding. And I know he scored a lot last season again, but he never really looked in decent nick.
He's missing them too, though, isn't he? He's missing them other two. Mane's gone. Firmino is a shell of the player that he was. So I think he's missing those.
Now, so.
Yeah, well, he's gone now as well. But he was a shell of the player that he was. I think a player like Salah had to probably do more work off the ball, maybe, to what they did. Yeah, Salah will go to Saudi. Wouldn't be surprised, Kovo. What a great loan deal that would be for 6 months, mate. Could you imagine? Clippity Klopp. I want him to be there if that happens, just to watch him whinge and cry in press conferences. That would be the sweetest thing. I would drink his tears in like a sweet pint on a fucking hot day. I really would. JB mentioned before there about Maddison not having the graft. I must admit, I'm not going to start a renege now, because anyone who watched my Rumour Has It videos on Maddison, I was like a little giggly schoolgirl dying for us to sign him. So I'm not going to go back on that and say that I'm happy that we didn't sign him, because I think he's a quality footballer and he would have added something to the team. But I think as a footballer, he would have had to adapt a lot of his game to the way Eddie Howe wants to play, because it's not really Maddison's game. Whereas I think a player like Tonali, it'll be an easier transition mark, I'd probably say, because of the way he plays the game. He's in your face. He's that kind of a player already. And if we could sign another player that can press, Chiesa has been mentioned a lot from Juventus, and he can press. He plays a pressing game. So somebody like him would probably fit into this team easier than Maddison, arguably. And we haven't even talked about Flash Gordon, which we will do in a minute. But maybe that's something that Howe and everybody looked at. Do you think that maybe Maddison couldn't play that game? And that's maybe why they didn't make the move?
I think that's a really fair shout as well. He's not the grafter of a forward line. He's never going to be the one that puts in that amount of graft in a game to close players down and be, do what Joe does, do what Bruno does, do what Sean does for that matter. And I think Tonali comes in and he can play that role. And one thing that Newcastle midfielders do very, very well is drive forward with the ball. Look how much yardage they get out of running with the ball. Joe Linton's brilliant at it, at driving forward. Longstaff's great at it too, and Bruno too. They can all get themselves forward running with the ball. I'm not sure Maddison does that with such strength.
No,
and I think
he would tire quick. I think he'd burn quick. I think you'd have to get that fitness right up, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and I think that's where it suits him playing in that hole because he doesn't have to run around an awful lot. He can he just has to turn and play balls, or he can get a yard and shoot or whatever. But he's not the grafter. Tonali comes in and he is. We've seen that from his time at Milan. We've seen that from his time at Brescia. And if you watched him again, if you did that game against France, where he got the ball and he drove forward and he was getting in players' faces, he does exactly what Eddie Howe wants him. His midfield to do. Just the perfect fit, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of comments there about Livramento, Chelsea, and talks with Livramento from Southampton. I mean, that deal, Southampton are funny, aren't they? It's almost like if you went into a shop and asked for a penny chew, Southampton try and sell you for £1.50. That seems to be what they're trying to do. They've been fucking relegated, and they're trying to get as much money for their assets as humanly possible. And I think they're taking the piss out of clubs, which is why people don't want to buy Ward-Prowse for whatever they said, was it 60 million or 70 million quid or something stupid like that. And then for their fullback who's been injured the entire last season, they wanted 30 million quid. So I think Newcastle are looking to move on to different options. Now, for me, left back is a priority, as Sean says there. But just on the Livramento one, I mean, we talked about the fact that Ashby's already there. Kraft's coming back, who can play right back. Personally, I think me and you both agree with this. I'd rather Walker Peters than Livramento personally myself, because he can play either side. He can play left or right back. I think he's a better player. So I don't know whether, but then again, Southampton probably want more money for him than they would have done Livramento. But where do you think that leaves us in a full back race? We've talked about, is it Hernandez from AC Milan? Is it DeMarco from Inter? So there's been a couple of big left backs linked. Tierney's obviously still kicking around, but again, Arsenal want 30 million quid, I think, for him. So do you see the left back being the next big one we plug up, mate? Because I personally do. I think that one will get filled next.
I think you're looking probably the next ones that realistic. You need a centre back. I think you need a right-sided centre back at the very least.
Maybe one in the rumour has it upcoming, mate. The next few days.
Just a little spoiler.
You segue bastard, you. You segue and son of a bitch.
I've learned from the best. I think a right-sided centre back, long-term replacement for Fabian Schär. I think a left back is a need, because look, we've said it till we're blue in the face. We've absolutely loved what Dan Burn has done this season, but still not convinced that he's a proper left back. He's done a
caught out,
job.
especially in the Champions League. Especially in the Champions League, he's going to get caught out, I think.
He's done an amazing job. And look, he will do you an admirable job there again, and he will do it in the Champions League. I've absolutely no doubt. But I think long term, you want somebody in that position that is their natural position. So whether that is a DeMarco, or whether that's, I don't know, I've thrown names like Tierney or Rico Henry, somebody that plays in that position that can do both forward and back rows, like Trippier can on the other side. Livramento, we've not seen play at left back. Whether he can do it or not at that level is a different question. His entire time really at Southampton has been spent playing at right back,
and then injured
when he's not been injured. So we haven't seen that. I said it last week. I find it strange for that to be a signing going for, and depend on what you're going to do with Ashby, because Livramento is a year younger than Harrison Ashby. So is this a case of Ashby then going out on loan to try and get some more game experience because he hasn't got it yet, and then see what you've got afterwards? But I don't know. If you've got Trippier, you've got Ashby there, you've got Kraft coming back, I would be prioritising left side, a left back and a centre back at that point, because I think those two are far more in terms of your priorities.
Yeah, I think the mighty win saying there that he thinks his priority should now be an elite attacker who can unlock low blocks and score from long shots, which is a player that we don't have. I mean, you're kind of hoping a lot that the signing of Tonali unlocks Bruno to go and be that player. But it's a big gamble. Do you add another player in the mix? I'd say there's one player we have been linked to, but I don't know whether he's going to go to Real Madrid or something that I really like the looks of. We talked about him the other week. He come off the bench against Wales for Turkey and scored that absolute fucking snorter. Is it Arda Güler from Fenerbahce? Very young player. What was he, about 19 years old or something like that? They call him the Turkish Messi. Skill for days, just quick feet, can shoot from range. Brilliant, kind of catalogue of passing on him, in terms of a player, and such a young player, and somebody who could just get better and better and better. And I'm sure that the fee they want from him is some stupid, like 18 million quid or something. I forget. That screams a Dan Ashworth type player that for me would I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as him, but it would almost be akin to when Man United went and dropped 12 million quid on a skinny Portuguese kid from Sporting, and everyone said, why the fuck you sign? Yeah, why the fuck you sign him? He's shy. Look at him. He's a skinny little bastard. He's only got one trick. They end up being, arguably the best footballer in the world, or one of them. So, I mean, Arda Güler is one for me, and a curveball one too, just to take these two on board before we get to the two that have been linked on loan that nobody's very happy about. So Arda Güler is one. I'd love to sign him. And the other one, Wilfred Zaha, free transfer, mate. Why not? He could do a job. I think he could still do a job.
Yes. There's the argument about the no dickhead policy, but then
there is that.
Is it just a case of he's like that on the pitch? Because you hear about an awful lot of work that he does, does good off the field. He'll cause I think he caused a divide in what people want. I think there's a comment in there from the Zig that says there's a wage structure problem. I think that's probably key, because he will command really high wages. I think Palace were offering him 200 grand plus, which is just not going to happen at Newcastle for him. He's at the wrong stage of his journey for Newcastle to look at that and go, do you know what? We'll give you 200 grand a week. It's not going to happen. He's the wrong side of his career to be there. They're going to look at somebody younger. They're going to look at the likes of Diaby and Kudus and players like that, because they've still got a decade left. They can be on 100 grand now and progress through and become world class as they go there. I just can't see Zaha being a viable option, if I'm honest. As good as I think he can still be, and the amount of goals and creation that he can give you, I just think he's the wrong end, and he just doesn't quite suit what's going on at St James's Park now.
That comment there saying Gue's off the Barca, which is a bastard, really. That's probably off the back of them not getting Messi, probably, in terms of them, bringing him back in. They might see him as the next generation of Messi, which is a real shame. I mean, hopefully it works for him, because I think he's a really talented young footballer, and I want to see that next big player come across. Comment there from Monkey Magic 55. Edison Alvarez, actually, that deal's broke down to Dortmund. I think they're signing. Is it another player we were linked to? Was it? Was it the kid who plays Mönchengladbach or the Bremen? Is it Fake or something?
Is it not Felix? The from Wolfsburg that they've just signed? Felix Mecha.
That's it.
Mecha. I can't pronounce it.
Yeah. So Dortmund. Well, if you can't pronounce it, I'm fucked. But Dortmund apparently signing him because the Alvarez deal is fell through. But obviously, our resident Welsh wizard, obviously lives over in the Netherlands, and he didn't rate him very highly, did he? He said he thought he was a little bit overrated. So I don't know whether maybe Dortmund have just decided to pull the plug a bit on that. I'm not too sure. But would you take? I mean, again, where's he going to fit? If Tonali's going to come in and do that role, I think we're done for that number 6 hunt. Personally, Mark, after Tonali, I think that's done. I don't think we'll get another player in there, which goes on to the loan deal. So 2 players that would be linked on loan, throwing this in there before we run out of time tonight. Kalvin Phillips, which is a weird one because he turned around and said he's happy at City, even though I've played more minutes for City, I think, than he has. And Conor Gallagher on loan was another one. Now, I'll let you take this on, but I've got opinions on both of these signs. I've just told you my Phillips one. I'll cut my Gallagher one in a minute. But is that really uninspiring, or is that a way to get around FFP for Eddie to work with 2 England internationals that would be decent players? How do you view those moves?
Both. I'd argue that fits the bill quite nicely. They're really uninspiring signings, but they also fit the. But we can not spend anything on them except some wages, or part of their wages, depending on the the agreement with the loaning club. They'll come in and do a job. I laugh at Phillips because if you look for stats on Phillips, it's great because where I normally go to with FP Ref, I get all the percentiles and stuff against players from other leagues. There's nothing on Phillips for this season because he hasn't played enough games. He hasn't played enough minutes to even get a comparison against others. And that's having said that, I got the same result from Reece Nelson, whose comparison minutes were 510. So that tells you how few minutes that Kalvin Phillips got. It's ridiculous.
Running for the bus. That's his distance travelled.
The mad thing is, you go back 12 months and Kalvin Phillips would have been probably one of the first names you go, yes, bring him in.
Brilliant, mate.
Right now, you've got Bruno, you've got Sean and Joe Linton, Joe Willock.
Yeah, Tonali now.
Tonali to add to that, I just can't see. Like you say, it's uninspiring. It's not one I would go for, but it would be a brilliant squad player if you're going to bring somebody in like that. The other one that I saw linked as a more likely signing, whether that would be a loan deal, but I doubt it, given that the club is McTominay. And the rumours recirculated about a 20-25 million pound potential for Scott McTominay. And again, he's not going to come in as a starter now. He's going to come in very much as a squad player. If that was going to be the case, he's not going to command a first team place.
Oh no, he's not going to play centre half as well. So he's got the flexibility there. So when I think about McTominay, I go, ugh, and then I also think, oh, hang on a minute. He can play centre half. He's right foot and play centre half. So maybe that's 2 positions. He can fill 6 in a cover for Shaw, possibly.
I have a feeling that. Sorry, Paul. That's. I have a feeling that we disagrees with that one. But
McTominay.
It's. I think we're up to that point. Look, again, it's what stage you're at, because he'd be a very serviceable player at the level that Newcastle are at. He'll come in and he'll do a job. He's not gonna blow you away with his performances, but he's a damn good footballer.
Yeah,
and he can play both positions. He can play in that hold. He can play a little bit further forward, like Sean Longstaff. So he does give you options, and it's. But I think
Sean.
Deep.
Yeah, but Sean is a better player than him now, currently on form. I think when you're looking at them, I think that's what people are looking at. But you're right. I mean, and you've got to remember Eddie's ability to get the best out of players, which takes me to this comment and my point on Conor Gallagher. So Sean's saying Gallagher's a bit of a headless chicken, but George is saying Howe has a trick of turning these players into absolute monsters. Now, if you go back and think back to the Conor Gallagher at Palace, and even the Conor Gallagher a little bit at West Brom when he was on loan, you're talking box-to-box midfielder, scoring goals, creating chances, engine, run for days, got back and tackled, pressed, started moves, slid in and put a ball for corners, all that. Everybody was waxing lyrically about how good this player was. He's gone back to Chelsea. There's been total disarray at Chelsea, which is normally, the case at Chelsea. I think the Titanic was a steadier vessel than fucking Chelsea, to be honest with you, the way that goes on. It's just an absolute shambles behind the scenes. So he's not had the best of times in consistency with managers, 3 or 4 different managers. And for a young player, look what happened to Sean with Bruce. It can really affect players, can't it, Mark, in terms of the development of their game. If we were to get one of those 2 players, if I'm brutally honest with you, Gallagher would be the one I would go for because I think Howe would get a tune out of him. I think Howe would definitely get a tune out of the lad, and I think he would get him back to where he wants to be. What do you reckon?
I think from Newcastle's point of view, it's who's got more upside to them at this point, and who can you get more out of across the field, both forward and back? Who's going to put in more graft? I think value-wise, if you're going to sign them permanently, I think probably McTominay in terms of the amount of money. I think that what Chelsea were potentially looking for Gallagher was far too much. You're looking at 40, 45 million, I think, at one point. I think is a ridiculous amount for a player that's not played an awful lot, not played very well this season for them. Although he was brilliant at Palace, and I think you're right. I think Eddie could get a massive tune out of him, would get him back to those levels if he's willing to put the work in. And I think we saw that at Palace. That he was willing to graft, he was willing to do the hard yards. But again, with McTominay, it sort of fits the. He'll do an awful lot of work. He'll do an awful lot of the miles on the pitch. He'll put the graft in. He will hound opposition players. He'll press high. He'll do all of that work. He can score a goal or two too. So,
yeah,
I've kind of sat on the fence there a bit, haven't I?
Yeah, as always, mate. As always, yeah. You can't accuse me for that one. I'm certainly not doing that. But I've got to give the Zig some respect there for the use of the word doiling. That's like a vintage wine insult. I do love that, Zig. Thank you so much for using that one, mate. That's beautiful. Chef's kiss, mate. Chef's kiss. But moving slightly on from the transfers, I mean, just to close on, I suppose, we will probably do a bit of a transfer around it maybe the next week or so, get a couple of the lads on as well to talk about it. We don't do the 4 show every week like we used to, but we're kind of doing it once a month. So we'll try and get the lads in and have a little chat about where we are transfers, where we've done well, where we need to strengthen still possibly as well. But I think you're right, Mark. I think we need to trust the process. I think that they have a plan. It's not like the previous regime, which is a lovely segue. It's not like the previous regime where they didn't have a fucking plan at all, and we didn't know who we were going to sign. So I do think the new owners or the current owners do have a plan. But if you look at Sky Sports don't seem to understand the differences between where we were and where we are now, because they've been at it again, and it only further feathers the nest of the agenda against Newcastle United. So a couple of screenshots here. So just to show you, and then I'm going to let Mark take the floor on this because Mark wasn't very happy with this. He rolled his eyes even more than I did. So this came through from Football Daily, which was obviously a video from Sky Sport and the transfer centre. So Newcastle United's transfers since the Saudi-backed takeover in 2021: 390 million spent, 50 million received in sales, 304 net spend. And then Sky decided to go, oh, hey, look at this.
That's not Sky. That's me. I was taking the.
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry. So beg your pardon. That is not. That's how clever you are. It was seamless, right? So this is what Mark has put together. So Mark, you take this away and just give it some perspective as to what Sky are talking about now versus what was going on.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, you can say what you want about that figure. 390 million across the time that the owners have been there it's a lot of money. But and when you compare that with what had gone on for it works out 14 and a half seasons effectively under Mike Ashley, is under 600 million spent. So in what is it, 1.5 seasons that the new owners have been there? Just over 1.5 seasons.
It's not two full seasons yet. No, it's not that.
They've spent more than half the amount of money that Mike actually spent in 14 and a half years. They brought, in terms of actually brought in, an awful lot for players. The season where they brought in 100 million of that wasn't used wisely to invest in the squad. A net spend of only 183 million over 14 and a half seasons, with a net spend of 12.62 million. And Sky have the audacity to go, oh, well, they've spent 300 million net. Fuck off. Seriously.
There's such an agenda.
Club that does that, it's just, they're making up for lost time. They've got room because they've not spent an awful lot of money for God knows how many years. and the squad needs to be developed. There will be players that will leave, and that's the one problem Newcastle will have going forward is they've got no sellable assets.
That's very true.
Probably Darlow, Dubravka, and St. Maximin. We'll not jump onto that one tonight, but it's so poorly managed across nearly 15 years, and then to roll that out, I just think it's bollocks because you've got to run it in comparison to where they've been. So if you go over the 16 seasons, it's not an awful lot. What on earth am I doing? I'm pressing all sorts of buttons here.
You're pressing all sorts of buttons. I'm just saying that to coin Fraser's comment there, the new owners have spent more on the training ground than Ashley did on transfers season, which is meant. A couple of the comments there, just to kind of wrap this one up. So Alexander Allard is saying good evening, or he hasn't been on for a minute because of his recovery. I hope you're okay, mate. I hope you're recovering well. He's still a little annoyed on the media approach to our transfer strategy, making us look like we don't know what we're doing. Yeah, I think you're right, Alex. It feathers the agenda. I think that Sky are full of, certainly, I think in the higher management positions, probably Liverpool and Man United fans from the 80s and 90s. That's why crusty old barnacles like Souness got jobs and kept jobs, really, because who the fuck would hire him? He got the charisma of a runny turd. He's gone now, obviously, but that's the only reason why he would be in a job. But I think, the agenda against Newcastle, because of who the owners are certainly there. It's not with the likes of Keith and Pete Graves and all these kind of guys, obviously, because they've got that connection to the fan base, and they've obviously got a little bit of freedom to say what they want to say. But I mean, when you see shit like that, Mark, it really is an agenda, isn't it, against Newcastle when they're putting it under a microscope like that. When Chelsea are doing what they're doing, and Klopp's just done what he's done with midfield, and nobody says fuck all, it's definitely an agenda.
It just seems an odd way to start putting it when you haven't done this for any other club over that period of time. Whenever they've looked at City spending, it's been over the decade. When Man U, it's been over the decade. For Everton, it's been over the time that their owners have been in. But it's been much longer than a couple of years. Look at the project. Look at the project that's going on, and you touch on there about the media trying to make Newcastle look like they don't know what they're doing in the transfer market. That might have been true at the very beginning, where there was a little bit of naivety around that level of players, possibly. But look at every signing that's been made. Every one of them has been under the radar. It's been, I would argue, has been undervalued. Has been, under the asking price for it, or the what a lot of what a team would have paid. I'm not sure you get many that would have said, Trippier will come in for 12 million. That means that was at least half probably his value. Yeah. Bruno, you could easily have got 50, 60. Pope, 10, worth far more than that.
Steele.
So they're doing things very well. So if they are trying to make Newcastle look bad in the media for not knowing what they're doing a really fucking bad job of it, because Newcastle are just steamrolling ahead, looking brilliant at this.
Absolutely, and does it make some more obvious? Great comment there from JB. Actually, dismantle our commercial department, criminally undervalued our club for his own gain. That's why we're so worried about FFP, JB. And George said he doesn't mind to Alex's comment that the media are gobshites. Only matters what we do on the pitch. Well said, mate. Well said. A couple of comments there about ASM as well. Would ASM go off to Saudi? I don't know if he would. ASM. I think he's either going to stay. I think he'll probably go to mainland Europe. Comment there from James. He would tear it up in Serie A. I think he would. But I think if we were going to flog him with Serie A, we might have done that as part of the Tonali deal, possibly.
Here's a deal. Would he go as part of the swap in terms of, you don't get many swaps these days, but would he go as part of a deal that would bring Chiesa to the club?
Possibly. That could be an option. It could be an option, or even Hernandez. Possibly, AC Milan could throw in Maxi and Cash or whatever. Maxi Cash, a Helios game, a hairband. Who knows? We could do that, maybe, possibly. so yeah. Zig's not having the media. He says, "Fuck the media. Rich people spend. It's the way of the world. FFP is a load of bollocks. Understand the prevention of major debt, but in which industry is investment capped?" That's a fair point. I mean, if City get away with what they get away with as well, I think the precedent is set really in terms of in terms of kind of what's going on. But yeah, listen, transfer wise, we could talk all night about it. We'll probably do more on transfers than we normally do, but we will come back with a transfer show. I think maybe give it another week or so to see who we signed, who we're linked with, and then we'll come back. So just moving on to the next section, Mark, is the stadium expansion. So we didn't cover this when the story first broke. A lot of other channels did. Mainly because I think our day jobs both got in the way, mainly, mate. But so the news kind of is that there's talk of these expansion plans to take the ground capacity up to 62,000, I believe it is. It's a great idea because you can't get tickets for love nor money now. There's 20-odd thousand in the waiting queue, I think, for season tickets.
If they get it to 62, you still not get a ticket for love nor money.
Yeah, it'll be gone, mate. It'll be gone. But I think that they're talking about I think it's the East Stand, isn't it? Is the main expansion. They have just put in some safe standing as well, I think, in the ground.
Yeah.
Which is something that Ashley obviously was very much not wanting to talk about. But I mean, real quickly on this, mate, it's only a good thing, isn't it? For Newcastle to get, because that capacity's been at 52 for a long time. We were probably ahead of the curve from a lot of clubs. When City were still pissing around at Main Road and Arsenal at Highbury and Spurs at the Lane, we were way ahead of them with a 52,000 capacity, but the rest of the division caught us up and we just kind of stood still. So we have to go to the next level, especially with European football, hopefully coming year on year. So it's only a good thing, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, I think that the obvious place to begin is the East Stand because it's this, it's the smallest.
Build it up.
I think the worry was always the fact that it backs onto those listed buildings behind and that they're blocking out the light and stuff like that. If they were to build up, it's never going to get planning permission. But I think the idea is being around making the way that they're building is changing an awful lot, so they can do things to allow the maximum amount of light still through the stand and not cause too much problems by using an awful lot of effectively glass to build the outsides of the upper parts of that, so you're not going to block the light. The other stands obviously would, because they've been being solid. So if they can get around that with some creative thinking in that regard, and then you can build up in other places too on the back of that. I think I was talking to a lad at work, and the difficulty I think when you look at the Gallagher end is that's another prime area for expansion is out the back of it, and can you expand too much with the metro line being stuck right underneath it?
Go
because
up and over, yeah.
The potential to then, yeah, exactly. So it's all about the design of it to make sure that you're not going to have any problems with what's underneath the ground, because that's sticking a massive stadium on top of those metro tunnels is just asking for trouble. So there'll be ways around it. I'm not an architect at all, as you can tell, but those are the two areas. They're going to be the two major areas to look at, and that will bring the stadium up probably 62, 70 odd thousand, maybe more if you can do it. And it's then allowing more and more people to get in. And you're right, the waiting for tickets is just going to be insane.
Yeah. Well, as Mark's saying there, he's using the phrase "new stadium," which I honestly do think inevitably one day down the line that could happen. But he said it would make more sense to build a new stadium in Leazes Park, return St James's to Parkland. I'm not sure they'd go Leazes Park. I think, depending on what happens with the arena, I think they maybe go down by the river. But that all just depends on the planning permission and everything else. Zig is saying you could make access points extra large with a glass interior, which is what you were talking about, Mark, as well, which would probably be a good thing to look at. Kevin said at least in James's Park, it's not like Vitality in Bournemouth.
I was just about to mention Kenilworth Road.
10 or 11,000. That's crazy. Our waiting list couldn't get into their stadium, mate. That's nuts, that.
And you haven't got to enter the away stand through Betsy's kitchen. So
hope she makes you a cup of tea and gives you digestive on the way. That won't be too bad if that's the case. You know what I mean? Watch on the telly, Betsy. Maybe play a bit of the chase with her as you're waiting to get through the turnstile. You maybe help her with some of the questions, possibly, mate. But I mean, it's. I think it's something that the club would definitely. I think it would have been part of their manifesto when they came in, the business briefing. They would have looked at that stadium. All those people, as Matty Wynn saying there, as soon as the club put in the planning application, absolutely for a new out of town stadium, the planned objections will disappear. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's a good bet, because all of a sudden that's drawn business a little bit away from the city centre, and the council won't like anything that's going to draw people out of the centre, because the amount of money that comes in on match day is ridiculous. Now people will still go in, but not as many if you're further out of town. So I think that's an ideal scenario, and that to kind of just call their bluff.
Yeah, it's a great comment by George there. He's just saying, let's stick a new stadium in Jesmond Dean and have Pets Corner in the fan zone and feed the goats pre-match. I don't know if you mean goats as in Bruno and Joe Linton, mate, because they are the fucking goats, George. They are.
The only problem with that, I can see people trying to sneak in goats into the ground, so you're going to end up with goats running across it. It's going to be like my freaking cat, isn't it? You're going to have
too many goats. There's too many goats on the park at the same time, mate. It's horrendous. It'd be like the sound of music, mate. They'll be chewing the grass. But so just moving on to what's the matter? Are they calling you back to the mothership? What are you looking at? What are you looking up for?
It's a weird noise, I believe, might be coming from my fridge. There you go.
Fridge.
Don't look at me, mate.
Don't look at me. I know nothing about fridges. Do I, Ian? If he's still in the comments, he's probably gone to bed now. But I know nothing about fridges. So just moving on to the next comment. So we've got to talk about it just really quickly. Flash Gordon, the boy is doing wonders at the under-21s. He seems to be playing in a bit of almost a striker role, and he's talking about playing in that position. And I didn't even know he had that in his locker, but he's got 2 goals and 2 assists now. I saw 2 goals and assists, I think, in the games that he's played. He scored against Portugal, lovely little finish. I think more good work from Morgan Gibbs-White, to be fair to him, who's having a good arena, or good tournament as well. Talk about arenas and stadiums. I mean, mine's going crazy. A good tournament as well. But it's really good to see that Gordon can play in those kind of pockets as well. And could we deploy him maybe as this young striker that we're trying to sign in the transfer market? Could Gordon save us a few quid and be that player?
It's almost like you were listening to me talking last week. It's exactly what I said last week.
Possibly, yeah. We'll rinse and repeat.
It is definitely a possibility, because he's shown he can play in those positions. So he's been brilliant, and it's sort of showing the form that he's been building to. And I think that he'll exactly. He'll come back full of beans from this. He's going to want to get the season started and prove again what he can do. And there were flashes from him, in games when he was given the chance. So I think, I've said since he come in that I think he will hit the ground and he will go at some point. And it was just waiting for him to get used to Newcastle style, the way that they train, the way that they play, and it will take a little bit of time, and then he'll rock it on. And he's shown at the Euros. I think he's hit that patch now. That continues on into the season. It's great. He can fill the position either wide. He can play through the middle comfortably.
Yeah, he certainly has a lot more to his game, I think, than we first anticipated when he came in. We saw little bits of it, as you rightly saying. This tournament's going to help him come back fitter and sharper next season, and Newcastle will definitely bear the benefits, I think, of that. And as William says there, sit Gordon in a number 10 behind Isak, Joe Linton to the left, Bruno and Tonali, double pivots deeper. It's not a bad shout, mate. It really isn't. I think the more that Gordon shows this kind of quality, I think the more Eddie Howe will be really interested as to how he can use him. He's seen him day in and day out in training, and Gordon strikes me as the type of player in training that probably nobody can get near him. He's probably all over the place, just dancing around players and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And that would be something that is really good. And as you rightly say, Kev, very versatile. As George says, loads of options there, which is what we need, because you want to keep teams on their toes. You don't just want to be one-dimensional. I felt last season with everything going through Trippier, we were a bit one-dimensional, which is why having an attacking left-back is a great option, and getting Tonali on the ball, hopefully, as well, is another option. So it gives us different layers to our game, so we're not easy to kind of sniff at, mate. But just like another segue, Mark, I'm talking about players who get on the ball and make things happen. I'm doing it again, mate. I'm segueing like a motherfucker. So the last segment of the night is Out of Toon. So this is our new segment where we talk about things that aren't Newcastle United related. And this week saw another great player, Mark, hang up his boots. One of the best midfielders, I think, we've seen in the Premier League. I think very underrated in many people's eyes. And it's this fella here, Cesc Fabregas. So he announced his retirement from football. So just a little reminder how good he was. These are the assists. So Ryan Giggs, Premier League legend, 162 assists in 632 games. Wayne Rooney, only behind Alan Shearer in goal scoring, but also 103 assists in 491 games. The great Frank Lampard, great player, not great manager, 102 assists in 609 games. Fabregas, 111 assists in just 350 games. What a player, Mark. And was he 36? Retired at 36? What a shame. Cracking player.
Yeah, what a shame. They have the career he's had. Look, I think you're right. I think a lot
World Cup winner as well. I missed that one as well, mate.
I think a lot of people did criminally underrate him. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. He was just an integral part of, especially that Arsenal side for a long time. He was just brilliant and so technically gifted. Great, great on the ball. And was you run out of superlatives for him because he was just that good. And that assist number is to have essentially a 1 in 3 assists. And when you look at some of the players he's up against in that list, I know they don't all play the same position, but geez, that's a lot of assists in a really short amount of time. And he's played an awful lot of big games as Cesc, and he's had a brilliant career. And yeah, it's another one of those that we've kind of you've followed for so long that's now gone. So it is a sad day for a player like that to then leave the game.
Yeah, I don't think he was part of that unbeaten team, Peter. No, I don't think he was part of the Invincibles, Cesc. Was he? Was he in the team then? The Invincibles? It was Vieira and Petit, wasn't it? He might have been in the squad, but I don't think he was in the first team then, was he?
When did he play for Arsenal? So he was Arsenal from 2003 to 2011. So the Invincibles were when?
2004? Oh, he was. The Zig saying
he was. He would have been. Yeah, he would have been earlier on
for ages, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. If he's one of those ones again that's just been around for as long as I can remember.
Wow. Broken through as a 16-year-old in 2002.
They nicked him, didn't they?
Wow.
They sort of nicked him from Barcelona.
He went back, didn't he, under Pep, I think.
He was just sensational. And to be part of that group and to have played in such a good team at that point and gone on, play for Barca, come back, play for Chelsea, and he's won everything. And just...
Any player that can stand next to Iniesta and Xavi and look decent, is a hell of a midfielder, in my opinion, mate. Just a great comment there from Kev as well. Probably something that we all forgot about. He was a good pundit for the BBC during the Euros, and after the Eriksen incident, he reminded us all football is just a game, because I think he is a very articulate, very intelligent bloke. And I think, massive respect for that, Kev. Absolutely, mate. Very good bloke, clearly, as well, in that moment, in a way to articulate, because not a lot of people probably could have done that as well. So I think he probably will go on and be a pundit probably somewhere, and probably a very good pundit at that as well, to be fair, because he seems to be quite media savvy, in all fairness, mate. So yeah, just I think one last thing, actually, Mark. I think just as we were just before we go, God, we're smashing the night. We'll be here when the milkman bottle rattle in the morning, I think, mate, at this rate. But because we've had such a phenomenal time recently, and we've reached yet another milestone thanks to all you wonderful people. Mark is just going to take you through the very last segment for once, instead of gobshite here, just to talk about what we're doing, Mark, what we're doing next.
Yeah, so I mean, we said when we got to 4K, we do another quick getaway. Jeez, it's after 11 o'clock. I've lost the plot. We'll do another giveaway. There is. I got one picture. It's the lad on bloody name completely escapes you. You'll recognize the picture straight away. But this is the one I've got to give away. It's the Bruno and Trippier picture. I am waiting for some more pictures to come as well, so there may be a little bit of a surprise package to throw in with that as well. But I haven't got them yet. So if they come in the next couple of days, you might get a surprise in there too. But I will give it away. I'm going to drop a post in the community section on YouTube after the show. To enter, all you need to do is drop a like on it, drop a comment, and I'll add your names to the hat. And then what we'll do is we'll take all of those and we'll do a draw on the channel. We'll do exactly the same as we did last time. We'll put all the names in the hat. We'll draw it out so you can see it going on, and we'll get that obviously sent off to whoever wins. So if you're interested, obviously drop us a like on the channel, drop us a like on the video, drop us a sub too. That'd be very nice. That helps get us to 5,000. But on the community post, if you drop a like on there, drop a comment. Important thing is to comment, because then I know who you are. I know what you know who's put the comments on there. So if you want to enter, drop that in. I'll put that on in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes or so after the show. And yeah, we'll do the draw over probably the next week. So we'll give it a couple of days on that, probably up until the end of Thursday. And then we'll take all the names up until that point. We'll put them in a pot and we'll draw them out and we'll see who's won. Happy with that?
Yeah, very much so. I can't believe you forgot the lad's name. I'm just desperately scrolling here to try and find the poor lad's name.
I want to say it's Matt, but I'm
Matt. Matt does ring a bell, actually.
Matty723 on Twitter. It's underscore Matty723. I'm sure everybody's seen them. Because
sorry, Matty. It's late.
Yeah, my apologies. Like some of the stuff the new one he's got on there of Tonali is just brilliant. So it's he's also got one on there that he's put on a few hours ago with Keegan and Ant Deck, which I thought was quite funny. So he's a Liverpool fan, but the work, the illustration work and stuff that he's got on there they're absolutely stunning. So highly recommend it. But I will, like I say, I'll put that on a community post as soon as it's up there. Drop a like on it, drop a comment, and we'll do the draw later in the week.
Fantastic. Great stuff, mate. Well, that's us all pretty much wrapped up for this week. We've overrun slightly, but it's been cracking to talk to all you guys until 11:15. I'm sure you're all going to be heading off to your bed in a minute to get some kip for the next day ahead of you. But thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in. As we mentioned at the start, if you haven't, please subscribe. I'd love you to come and join us. Loads of room for you and ever more. We're over 4,100, but keeps growing every single week, every single month. And thank you so much for everybody who's clicking that button. Like the video as well, as a few said in the comments. Big shout out to you, Vincent. You always remind us, mate. Click like, help the channel get around YouTube, help it grow. We're going to be back with loads more transfer banter. Keep glued to the channel. There'll be transfer shows, probably transfer updates right throughout the week in terms of the rumours and everything else. Possibly the odd rant off me if something decides to annoy me through the week. But other than that, we'll be back next Monday with what's going on, everybody. Have a cracking night's sleep, and we'll catch us later.
Take care, guys.
See you later.